Okay, hey there guys, so a day or two ago at this point, got done with the Mutant Abyss run, and I was just going to go over it and kind of break it down, give some pointers for what I would have done differently. So the path I took was, I guess it's the kind of standard path that people do. I took path 3 into path 1, so that it goes Darkhawk, Luke Cage, and then I go down on continue on the red to Old Man Logan, Havoc, Dormammu, right, and then I join the easy path, and I basically just stay going along the yellow the whole way through. There's a couple other paths you can take for this one, but that's the one I kind of decided on. Depending on the team, I think you can go other paths. I just didn't want to have to deal with Captain Marvel movie or Red Skull, so I didn't pick either of those paths. That was literally the decision making for those ones. So, on a whole, I would say I played okay. I did not play very well for this run. I had people on call with me, they can attest to this. It was definitely not my best playing. I feel like for parts of it, I didn't play bad. I would say I actually played like okay at some portions, but RNG raped me at some of these fights, man. Some of these fights were just absolutely trash. Also, sorry about the weird alignment on the spreadsheet up here. It looks like under the revives part, it got like swapped around. I don't quite know why. So if you look, like, some of the fights went very, very well. Other fights went just tragic. So Darkhawk, I did too, but I didn't feel like trying to go for the solo. I probably could have, or I should have, or whatever. But there were a few fights that were really bad, and I'm gonna go over those fights especially at the end of this video. But I want to go over just some of like the main key fights, and I took some pictures for the different fights I took, so I'm gonna like highlight those fights because most of the pictures that I took for those fights are some of the harder fights. Also, yes, Satan was Satan. He took my soul, literally everything. So for the collector, for the first 60%, I was just doing team revives, and I was using all 4 of my champions other than White Magneto. You saw my team along the bottom. I brought, right, Strife, Apocalypse, Professor X, and Magneto, and a White Magneto, which is a rank 1 4-star, so I didn't use him at all. So I used the 4 other champs for the first 60%, because with the White Magneto pre-fight, anyone can parry and stun him. So the Magneto did the least work, and I was not playing too well with Professor against Collector, so I also didn't do too much with him. And man, I don't know what was up. I did everything wrong in this fight. I literally, like, the next day, I was telling some of my alliance mates and some of my friends and stuff about what was happening, and one of my alliance mates, he's a pretty cool guy, and he did his run, he sent it, and he did 80% or something of Collector, or 70% of Collector in a single go. I did awful for that fight. So, for Havoc here, Apocalypse, just insane. It was just amazing for this fight. I locked in my debuffs. I probably didn't even have to lock in my debuffs. You can probably just like go for it. For Professor for Luke Cage, you saw the revives. This is my first ever try using Professor X in Abyss, so I was never like expecting too much for myself with him, especially against X Luke Cage, which is one of the hardest fights, and it's a fight that I feel like a lot of people practice before doing. I did not do any practice or anything going in, but I think I got it fairly well to only do it in 4 revives, I think it was. Not the best play that you can do, because this fight can be a solo, but personally, I was okay with my revive count for this fight specifically. I felt like that was within expectations for me. I've never been the best Professor X player, and I've never used him in Abyss, and I was having trouble maintaining like the keeping prowess going the whole time. I don't know, I was just off on my rhythm the whole like day and a half that I did this run, especially with Professor. It wasn't going too well. And so right here, I don't know why these 2 clips got taken apart, but Apocalypse is amazing for Havoc. Use Apocalypse for Havoc. It's as simple as that. It was 1 revive, but that was because I didn't go in with 4 charges. I think if I go in with 4 charges, play it a little bit better, it's probably a solo. Magneto against the Old Man Logan, very easy. You just spam SP3, run Despair and Petrify, and it goes even faster. Pretty simple fight. The Joe Fixit is a fight I wanted to highlight. With Strife, it is not actually the best counter because you want to be using your SP3s, and even if you're already at the 100 telepathic charges, which you can see in my persistent charges, it will consume all of your current telepathic charges, so you're never able to really get that 120 charges for his max damage output, so it kind of made the fight a little bit more annoying than it needed to. I still did it in only like one revive or something, so that was actually pretty decent. Also, Professor X, I tried for this fight, and like literally the second, I think, thing that he triggered was Fate Seal, and it removed all of my prowess instantly, like 20 seconds into the fight. Like right after I started my special loop, Fate Sealed, boom, no damage. It sucked. It was only one revive for Joe Fixit though with the Strife. Dormammu was where I charged him. I'll go over charging him a little bit more at the end. I think Dormammu's the best place to charge him. You just remove dexterity and it's super easy. Instead of going for the 20 charges before going for the SP3, so I don't have to use 3 SP3 or 4 SP3s, I just kind of did it as soon as I got it because I was like, all these fights are so big. SP3 is only one hit on an Abyss count charge, so I just spammed the SP3 instead, and because of the Horseman prowess, it actually made it hit very, very hard, so that was good. Apocalypse bodied this fight. Because of how long this fight gets with the Strife synergy, my red damage when she didn't have her shield was doing like 25,000 each hit or something. It was absolutely insane, especially with the 4 charges on Professor X and the Horseman ability, not the Horseman, the synergy. Apocalypse was absolutely crazy. I wish I used Apocalypse for more fights that he could have gotten all 4 charges for. I used Strife more. I really enjoyed using Strife, but Apocalypse was an absolute monster once you got him going. Like, this Invisible Woman is really tanky because of her nodes, but he did very well because of willpower. You can just spam that special. Against Cole Obsidian, I used like Strife, but I just like instantly ran into his heavy because I was dumb. I swapped over to Apocalypse and did that in a single go, and this is a 6 million health pool fight. Apocalypse is great for a lot of these fights, as I said. I realized it a little bit later in the run because of some errors in planning. Venom the Duck. I used Strife. I got raped by RNG. He got regen 4 fights, or 4 things in a row, right, where he gets his triggers and he gets his buff. He got it 4 times in a row. There were other things that were just going on in this fight. It was absolutely insane the amount of regens he got. He got like 7 regens out of like 10 buffs or something. It was absolutely insane how many regens he was triggering. I would actually suggest using Apocalypse for this, and I'll explain the charges in just a second here. So what I did, right, was I used Magneto for the Darkhawk, and I picked up a Professor X charge at the end of that fight to make Luke Cage a bit easier so I can use an SP3 and get an extra prowess buff. Makes sense, right? So then, Luke Cage is obviously Professor X. Okay. Old Man Logan was Magneto. What I should have done was I should have probably used Apocalypse. I think I should have used an extra revive or 2 early on, go into Old Man Logan or something, or at least like at the very end quit out with Magneto, and then go in with Apocalypse, get my 4 charges, then give Horseman on Dormammu, then get my charges back on Havoc. But instead, I ramped Strife up on Dormammu, and I gave the Horseman on Dormammu at the same time, and because I gave that, there was no real place for me to get my charges back with Apocalypse. And so what I think what I should have done is I should have either gotten my charges on Old Man Logan and given it there, or honestly, because he's Mutant there, just use a couple extra revives and kind of like maybe throw the final like bit against Luke Cage, go into the Old Man Logan fight, get my 4th charge, quit the fight or whatever, use the Horseman, ramp up Strife on Old Man Logan because he has the regen. I can definitely get up the full charges, right? That'll put me down at 0, but anytime you enter a fight against a mutant, you gain 2, so I can easily regain the charges on Old Man Logan, because you can use Despair actually to really, really further that fight with Apocalypse, so I would kind of use him against Old Man Logan and Havoc to regain his charges, and then I would have just been able to use him the whole time, and then I would continue what I would have done, where I would have used Strife for Dormammu. I think I would honestly still use Strife for Joe Fixit, but I'm not 100% sure about that. I think Apocalypse would be really, really good because he can kind of counter the regen if you get it. Not really, though, actually, never mind, because it would be too late. So, Mordo. Mordo is the first fight, I would say, that things got out of hand. I ended up, as you saw, using like 10 revives on Mordo or something. I'll show the revive count at the end again, and you guys can just pause it and just like laugh at how tragic my run was if you want to. So the issue with Mordo was RNG. He decided he hated me. It's as simple as that. Like, there was one fight, I go in, I used the White Magneto pre-fight so he can't evade. He can't evade from a passive stun, plus with Strife, he actually can't evade your mediums, so even if you're using a normal parry, you medium, and he doesn't evade your mediums or your heavies, he just removes your stun. Pretty simple. But, so I'd go in, I'd get him up to a bar of power, and then I'd try to bait out a special. He didn't throw it. He got his power gain, he went to 2 bars of power. I tried to bait out a special, he didn't throw it. He got his power gain, but he wasn't throwing his special, but he pushed me out into the middle of the battlefield, so I couldn't use my heavy. If I tried to use my heavy, he dexed it, and he got to SP3, and he did that like 3 times, just not throwing a single special. He might have done that more than 3 times. There were so many times where he just didn't throw his special, and there were actually a few times where the only special he threw in a fight was a special 3, and I started at baiting the SP1. And I think I might have even canceled one of the power gains on one of those fights. It was absolutely ridiculous as AI. Venom the Duck, that's why I'm saying I would change how I charged my Apocalypse. I would use Apocalypse for the full fight against Venom the Duck. With High Despair, once you have the 4 debuffs on him, he heals very, very little, even at 2. At 3, you're basically making it so he has almost no healing. And if you have Petrify, especially Petrify maxed out, if you parry him or you're using parry heavies for your bleeds, he has like very, very little healing. Howard the Duck, simple Magneto fight. It's just boring, it's just long. That's all. Hyperion's all RNG. The first time I went into the fight, I got 25% off of him. 25% in a single go, and the next go he went straight to SP3, and then I got like another 10% off, and then he kind of did the SP3 thing again, and it only actually ended up being like 4 revives, which is fine. Champion, when I did this run, was bugged. He shouldn't be bugged by the time you're doing this. If you're watching this video, they're fixing the bug in this next update. That's pretty good. His regen was actually more annoying than I thought. I would consider using Apocalypse for that fight. I would actually consider using Apocalypse for that fight for the concussion. I'll be 100% honest. Same with the Despair. Cyclops, Strife, Apocalypse, either works great. Even Professor X, if you probably wanted to, you could. Pretty easy fight as long as you remember the Dex and block command. I kept getting confused because he has a little icon up in the top right, but it actually shows what you need to do for the next one, which is actually very helpful. But I was looking at it and I saw the little like unblockable symbol, so I'm like, oh shoot, Dex, and then I eat it to the face, and Strife thankfully like bailed me out with glancing and stuff. Loki, use Strife. Use Strife. You actually can just spam your heavy. You get your unblockable actually in that fight pretty easy. Aegon is just kind of use Strife and Apocalypse. Like, both of them should be kind of alive by the time you're at that fight, and you're just going to go in and you're just going to do it. I noticed a bug. My shock would not fall off because of ability accuracy reduction like it maybe could in the fight. What would happen was I would hit him and it would instantly fall off. In Invisible Woman, as I said, use Apocalypse. I tried to use Professor X because I know you can use Professor X for that fight, but I didn't have any potions for this run. I should have grinded out potions. I didn't. It bit me in the butt. I hate grinding potions. I despise it. But Apocalypse did it in 1 revive. The willpower was just too much for her to chew through. I really recommend that. Cole, same thing as Aegon. Just kind of go in with like Professor, Apocalypse, and Strife, and just use like a single team revive or something if they're all dead, or if they're all alive, just kind of go in, use them all. Collector, I literally don't know the strategy. Even with Aegon, I was never the best at fighting Collector, but with Strife, you're kind of supposed to use your, I believe, the White Magneto pre-fight to get heavies, to get your telepathic charges, so that way you can remove his Unstoppable later in the fight and get a big run going where you're launching a lot of SP2s, but you need to be good at his SP2 decks, and you need to just be decent at understanding the fight and how he works. If you can do that, I think it goes pretty well. And this is my revives, as I said. I literally used like everything. It's absolutely embarrassing that I used that much, but it is how the path went. I'm not gonna try to hide that from you guys. Like, I'm sorry this video went on so long. I really just wanted to cover this run in detail, try to like make it as helpful as I can. If you have any like direct questions about this run and things I would change, things I wouldn't change, ask them below in the comments or DM me online. It's the same as my YouTube channel's name. Maybe I'll add that in a description or something one time, I don't know. But yeah, just watch out for Collector. He cost me way too much, but also have some form of potions. I used all of my 3-hour crystals for the potions. It worked only for the first like half of the run, and then that's why the prices jumped back up, because I used the potions in the wrong places, like against Mordo and stuff, and I was eating SP3s. So use your potions wisely, get potions. I'm sorry for all the still pictures in this video, but I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you guys found it helpful. I'll be seeing you guys soon. Have a good one. Bye.